You feel it, don't you? That invisible weight pressing against your chest, the fog clouding your mind, the voice whispering that nothing will ever change. It keeps you stuck, drowning in thoughts that loop endlessly. You try to push through it, to rationalize your way out, but it always finds a way to pull you back. And here's the part no one dares to tell you. Epictetus saw this coming. Centuries ago, before psychologists labeled emotions, before self-help books preached positivity, before the world fed you lies about what happiness is supposed to look like, there was a man who understood suffering in its rawest form. He wasn't born into privilege. He wasn't granted an easy life. He was a slave, owned by another human being, forced to endure hardship you can't even imagine. And yet, he found a way to be free. Not free in the way the world defines it. Not freedom through wealth, power, or status. No, Epictetus discovered something far more valuable: mental sovereignty. And here's the cold, hard truth. If you're drowning in your own mind right now, it's because you're fighting the wrong battle. You've been conditioned to believe that your suffering comes from external forces: your job, your relationships, your failures, the past that haunts you, the future that terrifies you. But Epictetus warned us long ago. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view they take of them. Read that again. Let it sink in. The storm is not outside you. It's inside. And if you don't control your mind, the world will do it for you. Every disappointment, every rejection, every moment where life doesn't bow to your expectations, it will consume you, torment you, break you down piece by piece until you believe there's no escape. But Epictetus didn't just diagnose the disease, he gave us the cure. He handed us a weapon, a philosophy so powerful it turned a slave into one of the greatest minds in history. It starts with one radical realization: you control nothing but yourself. Nothing, not the past, not the opinions of others, not the circumstances you were thrown into. But the moment you stop wasting your energy on the uncontrollable, you reclaim your power. Most people never understand this. They spend their entire lives shackled to emotions they refuse to question, chained to expectations that were never theirs to begin with. But Epictetus, he laughed at those illusions. You wish to conquer the world, he would say, but you have not yet conquered yourself. So ask yourself, how much of your suffering is real, and how much is just a story you keep repeating? Because the truth is brutal. And if you're willing to face it, what comes next might just set you free. The mind is a prison, but the bars aren't made of steel. They're crafted from illusion, expectations that were never yours, fears that don't belong to you, suffering that you unknowingly chose to carry. You weren't born shackled, yet here you are, locked inside a mental cell, waiting for something, someone, anything to set you free. But Epictetus knew the truth. No one is coming to save you. No grand rescue, no magic cure, no external force will break these chains. Why? Because they were never real to begin with. You are not trapped by life. You are trapped by your perception of it. That's the mistake. That's the lie. You've spent years believing that your emotions are commands, that if sadness arrives, you must obey. If despair knocks, you must let it in. If fear whispers, you must listen. But what if Epictetus was right? What if pain is not the problem? Your reaction to it is. He understood something most people never will. Suffering is not a punishment. It is a teacher. And those who refuse to learn, who fight reality instead of adapting to it, will always remain its prisoners. You are upset, Epictetus would say, because you demand that the world be something it is not. You demand fairness, predictability, comfort. But the world doesn't care about your demands. It moves relentlessly, indifferent to your desires. And every time you resist that truth, you suffer. Look at your life. Look at the pain you carry. Is it really the circumstances that hurt you, or is it your refusal to accept them? Epictetus believed freedom was a choice, but not the kind most imagine. It isn't wealth. It isn't status. It isn't control over others. It is mastery over yourself. And here's what they don't want you to know. You could be free right now. Yes, right now. Not next year. Not when your situation changes. Not when people start treating you differently. Now. But that would require something terrifying. It would require you to stop blaming everything else and take full responsibility for your own mind. Most will never do this. They will cling to their suffering because it's familiar. They will convince themselves that they are powerless, that happiness is something given rather than something built. And they will never escape. But Epictetus, he walked through fire, through slavery, through the worst life could offer, and came out untouched, not because life was kind to him, but because he refused to be ruled by anything outside his own control. That is the path. That is the way out. You either take command of your mind, or you remain at the mercy of everything. So ask yourself, right now, are you ready to be free? Or will you keep waiting for chains that never existed to be broken? You stand at a crossroads, whether you realize it or not. One path leads deeper into the suffering you know too well, the endless cycle of doubt, fear, regret. The other, a road few dare to walk. It demands discipline. It demands detachment. It demands that you take responsibility, not just for your actions, but for your thoughts, your emotions, your very perception of reality. Epictetus stood at this very crossroads centuries ago, and he made his choice. He chose power, not over others, not over fate, but over himself. The world tried to break him, to strip him of everything. Yet he remained untouched. How? Because he understood a truth so profound, so devastating, that most will reject it outright. Nothing outside of you has the power to harm you, unless you allow it. Let that sink in. The insult? Meaningless. Unless you decide to take offense. The loss? Painful. Only if you insist on clinging to what was never truly yours. The failure? Crushing. If you let it define you, if you choose to see it as an end instead of a lesson. This is what separates the strong from the weak. The weak beg the universe for relief, praying that circumstances shift, that people change, that life finally grants them peace. The strong, they take what comes. They adapt. They refuse to waste a single breath, mourning what they never controlled in the first place. And now you have a decision to make. Will you continue allowing the outside world to dictate your inner state? Will you keep handing over your peace to every inconvenience, every betrayal, every shattered expectation? Or will you finally see reality for what it is? Indifferent, uncontrollable, yet powerless to dictate your mind unless you surrender to it. Epictetus said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." Do you understand what that means? It means no one makes you angry. No one makes you sad. No one has the ability to reach inside your head and turn the gears unless you give them permission. You have been a prisoner, but the door was never locked. The walls were never real. You have suffered not because life is cruel, but because you have yet to master the one thing that truly belongs to you, your own perception. So, what will it be? Stay as you are, waiting for the world to change? Or take the path Epictetus walked, the path only a few have the courage to follow? Because the truth is this: life will never stop testing you. But if you learn what Epictetus knew, if you take control over the one thing you do own, your mind, Then you will finally understand what real freedom is, and no force in existence will ever take it from you again. Most people live as prisoners without realizing it, shackled not by iron, but by invisible chains, resentment, fear, self-pity. They drag their burdens through life, convinced that suffering is their fate, that happiness is some distant prize to be earned if only the world would play fair. But the world is not fair. It never was. It never will be. And Epictetus? He knew that the only real prison is the one you refuse to leave. You think your misery is unique, that your pain is special, that no one understands. But look around. Everywhere you turn, people are drowning in the same self-inflicted torment, trapped in a cycle of blame, longing, frustration. They believe peace is something to be given. Epictetus knew the truth. It must be taken. Ask yourself, who controls you? Is it the past you refuse to let go? The people whose approval you still chase? The failures that haunt you? Every time you react, every time you let the external dictate the internal, you hand over your power. You are a puppet, your strings, pulled by forces beyond your control. And yet, the solution has been within your reach all along. It is not easy. It was never meant to be. To master yourself is the hardest battle you will ever fight. But what is the alternative? To remain at the mercy of everything. To let circumstances rule your emotions. To be tossed like a leaf in the wind, directionless, powerless. Epictetus did not just endure hardship, he transcended it. While others wept over misfortune, he studied it. Where others saw tragedy, he found wisdom. He understood that every setback was an opportunity, every insult a lesson, every pain a teacher. The obstacle is not the enemy. The obstacle is the way. That is the philosophy that separates those who suffer endlessly from those who rise above. Consider this. What if nothing could hurt you unless you allowed it? What if every hardship you ever faced was not a curse, but a test? What if the only thing standing between you and absolute mental freedom was your willingness to see suffering for what it really is? Temporary, insignificant, powerless. There are two types of people in this world, those who react and those who decide. Epictetus decided. He decided that no master, no circumstance, no cruelty could claim his mind. He knew something most will never accept. You do not control what happens to you, but you control what it means. So now you have a choice. Remain as you are, clinging to illusions, hoping the world softens its blows. Or take what is yours, your thoughts, your emotions, your very perception of reality. Because that is the only thing you will ever truly own. This is not philosophy. This is war. A war against everything that seeks to control you. Against every weakness that tempts you to surrender. Against every lie you've told yourself about why you cannot be free. You know what Epictetus would say. The question is, are you ready to listen? No one is coming to save you. Not tomorrow, not next year, not when the stars align or when life finally decides to be kind. You wait for a breakthrough, a sign, an escape. But the only thing waiting is time. Time that does not pause, does not care, does not grant mercy. Epictetus understood this better than anyone. A man stripped of freedom, denied comfort, reduced to property in the eyes of the world, and yet more powerful than kings, because he saw what others refused to. Most suffering is self-inflicted. You are not in pain because life is cruel. You are in pain because you demand it to be something it is not. You believe things should be different, that people should act according to your expectations, that fate should bend to your desires, and when it doesn't, you break. But here's the truth. The world owes you nothing. Read that again. Let it burn. Let it shatter every illusion you've built to justify your misery. Epictetus didn't waste time hoping for fairness. He didn't beg the universe for peace. He mastered one thing: himself. While others fought against reality, he embraced it. While they drowned in self-pity, he rose above. While they let their emotions dictate their existence, he ruled over his own mind with an iron grip. That is what makes the strong unshakable. They do not wish for easier days. They do not crumble when things go wrong. They stand firm, unmoved, while the weak are swept away by every disappointment, every insult, every challenge. And here you are, standing at the same crossroads. One path leads to more of the same. More excuses, more waiting, more suffering. The other, brutal, unforgiving. It demands discipline, demands responsibility, demands that you own everything: your thoughts, your reactions, your very identity. But it is the only path to freedom. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." Think of the weight you carry. How much of it belongs to you? How much suffering is simply you clinging to things you were never meant to hold? Let go. Let go of the past that cannot be rewritten. Let go of the opinions of those who do not matter. Let go of the false belief that your happiness depends on anything outside of yourself. You are stronger than you've been led to believe. Not because you were born different, but because all power begins with a decision. Decide. Decide that from this moment forward, your emotions will not own you. That failure will not define you. That adversity will forge you rather than break you. Because in the end, the storm will come, just as it always does. And when it does, the question is not whether the winds will rage or the waves will crash. The question is simple: will you stand or will you fall?